Hello, Overflow family. Welcome to Wellbeing Wednesdays. I'm Jim McIntyre, and along with my wife Katherine, we're going to be posting a series of videos talking about mental health and about specific mental health issues. Both Katherine and I work in the field of mental health, and it's an area that we're really passionate about, and it's an area that it feels like it's really relevant and timely to be talking about currently. So these videos will hopefully serve a few purposes. Firstly, there's a lot of misconceptions, misunderstandings, and simply lack of knowledge around the area of mental health for many people. So we want to bring to awareness this subject as well as give some education around this area. Secondly, there's a lot of really fantastic resources, information, and services available in regards to mental health if you know where to look. So we want to highlight some of that as well as just providing condensed information around these topics. Ultimately, our goal is for Overflow to flourish, for us to be people who are experiencing well-being, and out of that well-being are able to represent Jesus well to the world, for us to be able to have compassion and love for ourselves and others. That's the journey that we're inviting you to join us in on this series. So we're going to be tackling different topics in different videos. We'll look at things such as anxiety, depression, addiction, and possibly some other areas as well. We'll answer questions in those areas if people have them. So if anything we say triggers a question for you, feel free to pop it in the comment for this video or send us an email. Speaking of triggers, we're going to be talking about mental health, and so we may occasionally be using examples or talking about symptoms that might be relevant to your experience. So we'd encourage you to take care of yourself as you engage with this video series. If something is triggering or not something you're in a place to deal with, then stop listening and reach out to someone or explore one of the resources that we share. Where possible, we'll give a content warning if we're exploring something that might be confronting or hard for certain people. So we are going to do a bit of an introduction to mental health, because mental health is a term that people often use to discuss mental health issues or conditions, but really it's two separate things: mental health and mental health issues. Mental health is a state of well-being. The World Health Organization defines mental health as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. We might call that state of well-being flourishing. Mental health issues, conditions, problems, or however you want to term them, are beliefs, behaviors, thought patterns, and conditions that interfere with that state of well-being. Mental health is complex, and it's a spectrum. It's possible for someone not to have a diagnosable mental health issue and still not be flourishing in their mental health. Similarly, it's possible for someone to have a diagnosed mental health issue and be feeling well in many aspects of their life. Mental health is about holistic well-being, and when we talk about well-being, we tend to be talking about four different aspects: spiritual well-being, social, physical, and emotional. So it's in the way that we think, feel, and develop relationships, and it's not merely the absence of a mental health condition. Mental health issues are really common. A study in 2009 showed that 1 in 5, so 20% of Australians aged 16 to 85 experience a common mental illness in any given year. That was just the common ones, such as depression, anxiety, and addiction. That's not taking into account things like schizophrenia, PTSD, and bipolar. That same study showed that 45% of Australians would experience a mental health issue at some point in their life, so just under 50%. Studies conducted in 2007 to 2018 showed that 1 in 7 Australians would experience depression in their life. 1 in 4 Australians will experience an anxiety condition in their lifetime. 1 in 16 Australians is currently experiencing depression. 1 in 7 Australians is currently experiencing an anxiety condition. Obviously, those studies are from a while ago. None of that has improved with a global pandemic. These conditions were common before, and now people are feeling really isolated. People don't have access to some of their coping strategies, or are just trying to deal with all the fear being thrown at them. And these conditions are even more common amongst those who are vulnerable. So, studies done over 12 years ago indicate that mental health issues are more common in young people. And a misconception can be that mental health issues are primarily in young people. But while they are shown to be more common in young people, those studies also show that they're not limited to young people. What we found as counsellors is that younger people are more likely to identify that they have a mental health issue, which is likely because younger people are often more aware of, not always, but sometimes more aware of the topic of mental health and can be more aware of mental health issues they're dealing with. I think it's just the way that the culture has shifted in talking about these things. But the reality is none of these issues are new. It's just us having language and understanding of this topic that is relatively new. Our experience as counsellors and from the other counsellors we talk to seems to strongly suggest that it's often, not always, but often, the undiagnosed mental health issues of older generations that contribute to many of the mental health issues of the younger generations. And for that older generation, it was the generation before them, not understanding or dealing with their mental health issues. And it's not that these issues weren't present in older generations. They were just sometimes undiagnosed, ignored, or misdiagnosed. So mental health issues are common, and they're not limited to one generation. It's not just a young person problem. So it's important for us to have an understanding of this topic because it hugely impacts our ability to be in the world, to have healthy relationships, and to love ourselves and others well. As the church, we get the privilege of representing Jesus to the world. And these conditions and our understanding or lack of understanding of these conditions can really interfere with our ability to represent Him well and show His love and compassion to the world. So what do we do? We're going to finish each video with a what do we do? How do we respond given what we've just talked about? So we've talked about how mental health is a state of well-being. We talked about how mental health is actually a spectrum and we're all somewhere on that spectrum. We talked about the fact that mental health issues are really common. So what I'd suggest we do given that is we be kind and non-judgmental. We are all somewhere on that spectrum of mental health, and it may be fluctuating daily, maybe fluctuating daily even more regularly at the moment. But we don't know where someone else is on that spectrum. So let's choose to love them and ourselves wherever they and we are at. Be kind to yourself and be kind to others. Secondly, and even more importantly in some ways I think, is ask our loved ones how they are and actually listen. Make space for people to not be okay. Not to try and fix them, just to hear them. In the Bible it talks about us grieving with those who are grieving, mourning with those who are mourning. And sometimes that's all people need is for us to be with them in their pain, for us to be with them in that moment, not for us to try and fix it. And so ask your loved ones how they are doing and just make space for them. Just listen. So if you have any questions about mental health broadly or anxiety, which will be the topic of our next video, throw them in the comments and we will endeavour to answer them, or you can contact me at the email address that I'll put at the end of this video. We'd also love to hear if you found this helpful or thought-provoking, or if there's something you would find helpful in this space. And we'll be dropping some resources in these comments. So we're going to be trying to do these videos pretty frequently, maybe weekly. We'll see how we go. And we're going to try and keep them to under 10 minutes. So we'll see how we go with that as well. But thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you again soon.